two main points of our history. The one that was started 3,500 years ago towards our land, the Canaani land, the Palestinian land, our indigenous land. We, the Palestinian, was there from the very first ever book in this holy book. We, the Palestinian, was there from the very first ever book in this holy book, Genesis, when Abraham, his name is Abram before he became Abraham, has been sojourn. Sojourn means travel or travel as a foreigner.
Okay.
In our homeland, on the Palestinian homeland. In this Balfour Declaration, which is 64 words, they pledged our homeland, our native homeland, to the foreigner, to the Khazarian Jew, to the European Jew.
Palestine remains at the center of some important geopolitical discussions for a while now. And today in the maiden episode of NMF, wherein we'll be talking to some elite folks from various countries, like today we have Abdullah Abu Shabesh, the ambassador of Palestine to India, to talk about the history of Palestine, the current issues which are going in Palestine right now, which are not being covered by the mainstream media and various other things, and the relationships of Palestine with India and what India is expecting from Palestine and how India can help Palestine and Palestine can help India. Today we'll reveal all these things in this conversation with Abdullah Abu Shabesh sir, and we'll have this conversation. And I want to welcome you to the show in the language which Palestine speak, Ahlan wa sahlan bikum, right? So it actually means welcome to the show. And I'm sure we'll have a very meaningful conversation. We'll talk about certain things which, as I said, are not covered yet by the mainstream media. And there are certain things which you can tell us what's the truth behind the narratives which have been built by the Western media. And there are certain things we can talk about. So welcome to the show, sir, again. And I want to start this conversation with a very small question that I would like to request you if you can talk about the history of Palestine, right, and how Palestine has covered the decades and where we are standing today.
Thank you so much indeed, Bishhaba Kumar. From an MF News, and much appreciation to you and of course to your team, whom received me in a very generous way, of course, this day. Indeed, when it came to the Palestinian history or Palestine history, I used to back to two main points of our history. The one that was started 3,500 years ago, and the one that was started just only 109 years ago. 3,500 years ago, the Prophet Abram, who became Abraham, has left his birthplace or the Chaldeans, which called today Iraq, and came towards our land, the Canaani land, the Palestinian land, our indigenous land. And you can find this exact wording in the Old Testament, the first chapter, the first book of Old Testament, Genesis, verses 21/34, which, and I quote, and Abraham sojourned in the Palestinian land many days. Which mean, according to the Old Testament, the Jewish and the others, of course, holy book, we, the Palestinian, was there from the very first ever book in this holy book, Genesis, when Abraham, his name is Abram before he became Abraham, has been sojourn. Sojourn means travel or travel as a foreigner.
Okay.
In our homeland, on the Palestinian homeland. The word Palestine, Canaan, Canaani land is repeated 100 of times in the Old Testament, the holy book for the Jews, the Christians, and of course the Muslim. We acknowledge it as a holy book. 100 of times our names is there: land of Canaan, the Canaani people; land of Palestine, the Palestinians; the king of Palestine, one of the kings of many kings in Palestine, and other. So that this is the first ever point that you can, but of course our history according to the expert people is thousands of years before even Abraham to come to our land. For example, Yericho, the city, the very old, one of the very ancient city worldwide, we found that there is some evidence that this exact city, this exact Palestinian city, had been founded 10,000 years ago. This is a proven fact. The other tipping point, unfortunately, it happened in November 2nd, 1917, when your occupier, colonizers, the British, whom have at that time zero footprint in our homeland, whom have no legal right over our land, pledged and gifted and issuing a promise called Balfour Declaration to the Khazarian Jew. In this Balfour Declaration, which is 64 words, they pledged our homeland, our native homeland, to the foreigner, to the Khazarian Jew, to the European Jew.
Okay.
This is the other tipping point. At that exact day, the British United Kingdom had sowed the seed for all the misery that we are enduring up today. British had sowed the seed for all the evil that we, the Palestinians, suffering and endure. So, two tipping point, 3,500 years ago, and November 2nd, 1917, when the British issued the despicable, notorious Balfour Declaration. This is the modern history. After they issued the Balfour Declaration, I mean the British, in 1917, 1918, they came to our land. They occupied our land.
Okay.
Between 1917 up to 1923, United Kingdom occupied Palestine. Palestine was under the Ottoman rules, not occupation, Ottoman rules, Turkish rules at that time.
Okay.
So that the British occupied Palestine. And since that exact day, they paved the way and they did not spare any effort to trench the existence of the Jewish people in Palestine, to open the gates of Palestine, the border of Palestine. It was called Palestine at that time.
Okay.
The whole entire area between the Mediterranean Sea and the Jordanian River called Palestine. So the British did not spare any effort to open the gate, to open the border for the Khazarian Jew, the foreigner, the European Jew, to immigrate to Palestine. The Jewish at that time, the Palestinian Jewish at that time, before 1917, was consisted less than 5% of the population, the Palestinian population. But they are Palestinians, Jewish Palestinians, likewise the Christians and the others Muslims. So that since 1917, when British issued the Balfour Declaration, 1918 when they occupied Palestine, then 1923 when they became the mandatory power over Palestine, the British up to May 14, 1948 did not spare again any effort to demilitarize the Palestinian people, to dehumanize the Palestinian people, and to strengthen and militarize the Jewish terrorist gangs at that time. This is the classification that even the British classified them. Two of the Jewish leaders at that time, whom became a prime minister of Israel, Menachem Begin, who became a prime minister of Israel in 1977, and Ishaq Shamir, who became the prime minister of Israel in 1994, both of them has wanted terrorists to the British themselves. But even though British did not spare any effort to strengthen the military existence of the terrorist Jewish gangs in Palestine and to demilitarize the Palestinian people, to pave the way for the implementation of the Balfour Declaration and, of course, establishment of the State of Israel. In 1948, the United Nations adopted a resolution called the Partition Plan of Palestine, or the 181 resolution. In this Partition Plan of Palestine, they designated 54% of Palestine to the new arrival Jews, whom consisted at that time 30%, which means since 1917 up to 1948, instead of 5% Palestinian Jews, they became 30%. The vast majority of them is new arrival after the German Holocaust, of course, and the World War II, so that 54% of the historical land of Palestine have designated to the new arrival, and the 46% is belong or divided or designated to the indigenous people. At that exact time, according to the British official statistics, the Jewish had only owned less than 5% of Palestine. Some statistics talking about 6%, but according to the British themselves, is less than 5% of Palestine. But even though the United Nations designated to them 54% of Palestine.
Okay.
They at that time, the Jewish gangs was fully militarized. The Palestinian is demilitarized, totally demilitarized. The British did not again spare any effort to pave the way for the implementation of Balfour Declaration and disarming the Palestinian people. There was a war between the Arab themselves and the Israeli at that time. The newborn country was defeated, the Arab, and expelled us from our homeland. We, the Palestinians, the vast majority of them had been expelled from their homeland and ethnically cleansed from homeland. So that my late father, Muhammad, was born in our original village, Barka, in Israel today. I personally born in a refugee camp in Gaza. 75% of the Gazans is a refugee. This is the history that no one knows. In 1948, Israel succeeded to build its state in 78% of the historical land of Palestine. Not likewise how the 181 or the Partition Plan of Palestine resolution designated to it, which is 54%. No, they succeeded to build their state in 78% of the historical land. Of course, again and again, the one who should blame in that, of course, the British 100%. Because they paved the way for the establishment of Israel.
Sure.
And this is there is another tipping point in our history. So the vast majority of the Palestinians became refugee. We had been endured ethnic cleansing in 1948 up to 1967, when Israel succeeded to occupy the remaining part of Palestine, Gaza Strip, West Bank, including East Jerusalem. So that in 1967 up to today, the whole entire Palestine, historical land, mandated Palestine, is under the Israeli control. 1967, the remaining part of Palestine come, according again to the international law, under the Israeli occupation. This is the tipping point. This is some of the tipping point. Of course, in 1987, we had the first Intifada. In 2000, we have the second Intifada, and up to today, we are still enduring many and suffering under the Israeli occupation. This is the tip of iceberg. But if you back to the Palestinian history, tens of tipping point in the Palestinian history. We, the Palestinians, had endured tens of terror attacks before even 1948. Up to today, in a daily pace, in West Bank, we used to endure tens of terror attacks at the hands of the Israeli settlers, fanatic settlers, in a daily pace. And when I say terror attack, this is not my word. This is according to the Israeli officials Two of the Israeli former prime ministers, Ehud Barak and Ehud Olmert, declared that this is a Jewish terror attack against the Palestinian people, and many, of course, many others, Israeli officials. Just to make the story short, this is only tips of iceberg of the Palestinian history since 1917 up to date.